Artifact hunters, cold-blooded mercenaries, despicable bandits and brainwashed fanatics. The anomalous zone presents a wide variety of people with all kinds of beliefs. However, and despite all their differences, almost all of the inhabitants of the Chernobyl environs share at least one trait in common. That is, the use of a PDA. Hello stalkers, and welcome to the anomalous dugout. In this video we shall take a look at the device known as PDA. What is it exactly? Does it have any bit of lore? And why is it considered an indispensable tool for survival in the zone? The name PDA stands for Personal Digital Assistant. It is basically a small and mobile electronic appliance similar to a handheld personal computer, which can be used for media playing, communication, data storage, and much more. The first models of PDAs were created during the 1980s, and the concept grew in popularity in the 90s and early 2000s, until PDAs would gradually turn into smartphones. Indeed, smartphones offer similar functions, and nowadays they've become the standard. Yet it is important to remember that this was not always the case. During the development of the first S.T.A.L.K.E.R game, that is before 2007, smartphones were only starting to appear, and PDAs were still popular, explaining why it was natural for the developers to implement them. Furthermore, PDAs are still being used today in some specific cases, most notably in working fields such as security, maintenance, metrology and warehouse management, as well as serving in the military. This is because PDAs can offer certain qualities that smartphones cannot. First, they can be specifically tuned for a certain job, allowing gain of time and efficiency. Then they can accommodate extra features like barcode readers, airfeed readers, magnetic card readers, and so on. Last but not least, they can be much more robust in construction, resisting harsh conditions of temperature, humidity, moisture, electric shocks, and of course physical damage. These characteristics help to explain why stalkers would always choose a PDA over a smartphone to take into the zone. And don't get me started on battery life, which can be much more durable in a PDA by design. Speaking of which, it is unknown how stalkers recharge their PDAs. It is possible they simply purchase new batteries from traders, or use some of the electricity somehow available in the zone. There is also a theory that PDAs have solar batteries, like some calculators do. It probably won't replace a real recharge, but it can be useful in case of an emergency. Now we know a little bit more about the background of PDAs, but it does not answer the question of why stalkers use them in the first place. What value does the device provide in an environment like the zone? As seen in the trilogy, stalkers use PDAs for many things.
This is your personal PDA. This useful device will help you survive in the zone.
In his tutorial to the marked one, Sidorovich explains the main functions of the device. To begin with, PDAs are excellent at handling data. First, the PDA stores digital maps of the zone, which allow for safer travel and precise target marking. Indeed, the map is combined with some sort of task manager that contains all the missions a stalker is given, along with detailed instructions, coordinates of the objectives, and so on. This system is especially useful because PDAs can easily communicate with each other, meaning traders and other quest-giving characters can simply send the information to the PDA of the hired person. Moreover, this grants the ability for stalkers to share the locations of stashes, anomalies, or any other place of interest. Besides, as explained by Nimble in Clear Sky, the PDA contains a tab dedicated to the faction wars.
This section allows you to access tactical information about combat operations at any time.
With this feature, group members can see the progress of the war and all their objectives. Of course, all of this could be done the old-fashioned way with paper maps, and actually some can be seen in various faction bases. However, the PDA remains much more practical to use in the field. Other than maps, PDAs are utilized to store a variety of other types of digital information. Text, photos and pictures, audio messages, any computer file, really. And once again, it seems that sharing and transferring this kind of data through PDAs is quite simple. For example, the player easily retrieves the important files found on various flash drives and the PDAs he finds on the wild or on deceased stalkers, such as notes and stash coordinates. Furthermore, the storage feature of the PDA is often used by stalkers to make diaries and reports about their experiences in the zone, as well as to track down their progress through the Statistics tab, which was available in all 3 games. In Shadow of Chernobyl, the Marked I himself kept a personal journal and had an encyclopedia section, where he would frequently add new entries describing all the things he discovered or that he learned from other stalkers. Many characters in the series were doing the same, with a lot of them using the sound recording feature of the PDA to create audio files. The exact reasons for the popularity of this behavior are unknown, but we can speculate. Firstly, maintaining a diary provides an interesting activity distinct from all the other stressful things that happen in the zone, like artifact hunting, mutant shooting, and faction war firefights. Secondly, stalkers may use their diaries as a way to share their experiences of the zone, be it with other stalkers or even with people from the outside. Who knows how much the media would be ready to pay for a good stalker diary? Thirdly, I think some stalkers write or record a diary because they don't want to turn insane. In a place with psi emissions, controllers and other anomalous phenomena that mess with your mind, it is not rare to see people going crazy or losing part of their memory, if not all of it.
I'm insane, I belong in an asylum!
Hence, the diary is a reminder of what's real in time of doubt, and a way to keep track of your past in case you forget who you are. Lastly, the PDA and by extension the diary is often the only thing that a stalker leaves behind after being lost to the zone. His equipment will be looted and serve someone else, but the PDA will also have its usefulness. More often than not, stalkers that are on the brink of death feel compelled to record a final message, especially when they're going to die alone. That is why we have so many of these last moments messages in the series, in which the stalkers express their regrets, explain their situation, and share some advice, hoping that the next people will not repeat the same mistakes, so that their death would not be in vain.
Vasilyev lost it at the very last moment, and when the door opened, he ran off instead of deactivating the lower consoles. I shouldn't have relied on him. S.T.A.L.K.E.R was right to mistrust those lying dogs. My only chance is to get to the door before the controller.
Moving on, PDAs are utilized for communications, which work similarly to radios. In fact, Sidorovich and many other characters are equipped with radios, and we can see in several instances that messages transmitted by these radios are compatible with PDAs, so I do believe the communication principle of PDAs is based on radio waves. Sidorovich himself explains a few interesting things regarding the communication functions of Marked I's PDA.
Your PDA model has a wide-frequency radio wave scanner with an inbuilt decoder. Its radius of operation is about 400 meters, so you can even intercept military comms. Mine has a working radius of 30 kilometers, so I can always get in touch with you. I'll give you the tasks and the latest news. Initially, I'll give you advice, too.
First, we get to know that our PDA's radio wave scanner is of military grade, explaining why we can hear the radio chatter of the army. This is probably a feature that only a few PDAs have, and our protagonist is lucky to have it installed. Second, we learn that the range of the feature is around 400 meters, which is not a lot but still impressive for such a small device. We can assume that the range at which PDAs can cast messages is similar in scale, as we can see multiple times in the series that PDA messages and calls for help are only received when in the general vicinity of the source.
People, this is the commander of the neutral squad. We've kicked the bandits out of the derelict machinery scrapyard, expecting counterattack. We're low on numbers, so everyone's welcome to give us a helping hand.
And thirdly, this lack of range explains why some people use actual radios, with Sidorovich's having a large enough radius to contact stalkers almost anywhere in the zone. This is why he and other important characters, such as Sakharov or Barkeep, can message you and remotely give you missions from such long distances.
Marked one. I told Barkeep about you. He should talk to duty guys to let you through. I suggest you go see him fast.
Furthermore, the modular nature of the PDAs means that in theory, they can be used for many other types of communications as well. For example, Strelok and Ghost once exchanged text messages. While not revolutionary, I think it's still important to mention because I'm pretty sure the zone does not have cell nor internet coverage. Moreover, the PDA keeps memory of all the conversations you had in text form inside the message log section. Still, radio waves seem to remain the most common form of communication, and are actually at the center of an interesting plot point in Clear Sky.
Believe it or not, I occasionally receive fragments of radio transmissions on my PDA from somewhere near Limansk. Go to the military warehouses. The signal should be better up on those hills.
It turns out that Forrester and S.T.A.L.K.E.R were able to intercept SOS signals from mercenaries trapped in a space anomaly near Limansk, and they later managed to contact them using a military transmitter located at the army warehouses. On a side note, it appears the antenna in Limansk is also linked with radio waves, as it was built next to the Radio Wave Institute, although we unfortunately don't know much more, since the location was never explored in the game. But enough with the radios. Let's now take a look at a much more peculiar and often overlooked feature of the PDA, that is the ability to detect other stalkers, friend or foe, and display the results in several different forms.
The PDA also has a contact section. The contact section contains a list of stalkers within 50 meters of you. Be careful if enemies are around. They're marked red on the visor. Friends are green and neutrals are yellow. Oh, and PDAs of dead stalkers are grey. Helps if you're into looting corpses.
From Sidorovich we learn that the detector works at a range of 50 meters. While the contact section in itself only exists in Shadow of Chernobyl, and I'll explain why a bit later, the detection of nearby stalkers and informations displayed on the so-called visor are similar in all three games. It is unknown exactly how this feature really works, however I have two main theories. The first is that the PDA contains a short-range life detector. Supposedly, the life detector was a device that was once planned during the development of Shadow of Chernobyl, which was used to detect living organisms. Ultimately it was cut, but it is not impossible that the detection feature of the PDA is an ID salvaged from the life detector concept. My second theory is that our PDA simply detects other PDAs. But how does a PDA know if its owner is alive or dead? And what about PDAs that were not worn by anyone? Can we detect those? As it turns out, we actually know for sure that tracking it down is possible. Indeed, Freedom technicians once hacked into Fang's PDA and managed to follow his signal during the events of Clear Sky. Similarly, a signal emitted by S.T.A.L.K.E.R, possibly by his PDA, was tracked down by Lieutenant Kirillov in Call of Pripyat. Not to mention that most missions requiring to find an NPC will display the exact location of that character at all times, even when moving. Another very interesting and unexplained phenomenon is that in Clear Sky, the player can see all Stalker units, as well as mutants displayed on the PDA, not just in his vicinity, but actually on the entire map. It is possible this feature is supposed to represent the fact that S.T.A.L.K.E.R, through talking with other Stalkers and exploration, learns where the main squads and monster nests are located. But it is also possible to be an actual function of his PDA. I don't believe the device alone would be able to do that, yet we should remember that S.T.A.L.K.E.R has the backup of the Clear Sky faction, which was created by former scientists of the X laboratories. This is a far-fetched theory, but what if the Clear Sky group had access to a technology that could scan the entire zone for living creatures, and send the information to the PDAs of its members? This could explain how the group managed to achieve great feats, like reaching the center of the zone. We also know from Call of Pripyat that the military had the ability to quickly scan the zone to create maps of anomalies, so why not living beings? As you can see, there is still a lot of mystery surrounding the features of the PDA. Nonetheless, I find these concepts quite fascinating. This shows that the PDA is more valuable and technologically advanced than what we might have guessed at first glance. And it could also mean that the world on which Stalker games take place is more advanced than our real world. Perhaps this has to do with scientific discoveries made in the zone. Who knows? Back to the contact section, it was only present in Shadow of Chernobyl, despite the fact that it is linked to the nearby Stalker detector, which appears in all three games. I believe this is because the contact section is somehow connected to the rankings section, which is directly established by Sidorovich himself.
Then there's a rating section. You can see the top 20 stalkers I know. I refresh this info from time to time to keep up the competitive spirit. Maybe you'll be at the top of this list someday, who knows?
Basically, Sidorovich is the one creating the ranking list of the top stalkers, meaning all the people who appear on the list are known by Sidorovich. My theory is that Marked One has access to the rankings and contacts features because Sidorovich installed them on his PDA, and these features draw their information from the trader's own network of contacts. I would not be surprised if the list of contacts is not just Sidorovich's acquaintances, but in fact a larger network which is shared by various traders within the zone, including Sid and Barkeep. We can see there are around 600 people in the list, which is a lot, but surely the zone has more inhabitants than this. It probably means that the traders' network is composed of these 600 or so stalkers. We can even see that the rankings contain people from various factions, showcasing the large influence these traders have. Moreover, some of the best stalkers on the ladder are indeed connected to Barkeep, as he is the one telling you that you should meet them at the entrance of Pripyat.
A squad of veterans is gathering before Pripyat at this moment. You can go with them if you make haste.
By using the contact section of the PDA, you will realize these experts are all on the top 20 stalkers according to Sidrovich's ratings. Last but not least, an obscure and rather unexplained feature of the PDA is the ability to store and transfer money. This functionality is hinted at by bandit dialogues upon being robbed in Clear Sky. More specifically, the sentence used is, "Pull out your PDA, time to share the cash." This implies that stalkers don't really carry bills around. Instead, they use PDAs to safely hide their money. This actually explains why you never gain cash by looting dead corpses, simply because the money is not physically there. I believe there are a few reasons for using such a system. First, it would prevent having to carry loads of bills on you at all times. Indeed, transactions in the zone can quickly amount to large sums of money, and I don't need to tell you how impractical it would be to move around with cases full of cash. Second, the currency utilized in the zone is actually the Soviet ruble, which is not particularly widespread considering it ceased to be used after the end of the Soviet Union. We speculate that stalkers trade with this kind of money because it is rare and disconnected to other in-use currencies, thus ensuring a more stable economy for the artifact business. Anyhow, having a dematerialized system would work perfectly with the Soviet ruble, as it would allow for easier trading both within and outside of the zone. Finally, having your hard-earned money safely secured on an account somewhere allows for stalkers to share it with the other people from the big land, most notably their family. And if a stalker dies, his money won't be lost and can still be withdrawn by its loved ones. All of that didn't prevent S.T.A.L.K.E.R from getting mugged though, so who actually knows how this whole thing really works? To conclude, we saw that PDAs offer a wide variety of useful functions, making it an absolutely vital piece of any stalker's equipment. Without PDAs, living in the zone just wouldn't be the same. And it is bound to evolve and upgrade too. I'm sure there could be many other interesting features added to the PDA, as well as things we forgot to talk about. So if you have any ideas, be sure to share them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and good luck.